Hi everybody, welcome back to another video. This is Moving Home with Charlie. I'm Charlie. And we're approaching October 2022. And exactly a month ago, I recorded a video and put it out on YouTube entitled 8 Reasons UK House Prices Will Collapse. Now, it turns out I was wrong. I was wrong on 2 counts. The first count is there aren't 8 reasons, there are actually 10 reasons, and that's what this video is going to go into. But I'm not here to tell you what to think or to decide for you. My job is to provide you with all of the information that you can check for yourself, and I'll put links to everything I refer to in the description below so you can check it for yourself. And none of it is mainstream media, it's all government or trusted sources. Because everybody's move is slightly different. Everyone's reasons for moving are unique. Everyone's position is unique. And I've now, since I did that video, I have had literally thousands of comments and questions and requests for help and requests for advice. There is no blanket advice I can give for one size fits all, and that every single one of your scenarios is unique. And only you can decide what the best decision for you is, having taken into account all the factors that affect you. So what I do in this channel is I try to provide you with as much information as I can to help you make the decisions for yourself. Spoiler alert, not only do I think house prices are going to fall, since I recorded that last video, I am now convinced that they are in fact falling quite sharply in most, but not all places. All right. So back in February of 2022, I said this: many of the conditions that need to exist for house prices to fall have appeared in the last few weeks. I'm now going to upgrade that forecast I made in February 2022 to house prices are falling. Collapsing? Well, there's no technical definition of collapsing or crashing, but in my opinion, a fall of more than 20% in under 12 months I think is reasonably acceptable as a definition of a crash or a collapse. Okay, 20% in a year. I suspect it's going to be more than that. I suspect we've already seen between 5 and 10% prices falling at the coalface, so where the prices are agreed. There's no public visibility of that. But I wanted to update the 8 reasons I gave you a month ago with the 10 reasons, and also make the other correction. I did make a mistake in my very first point in that last video, and I'm going to start with that. So my reason number 1 at the beginning of the last video was about energy prices. And when I got on to discussing energy prices, I said this: just with the increase we've already had, that's taken about £400 a month out of the average first-time buyer's budget. As I said at the beginning of that video, I just sat down quickly and did a video off the top of my head. And what I meant when I said £400 a month out of the average first-time buyer's budget already had been taken, I actually meant, and it was in my head and it didn't come out in words, the increase in fuel prices at the fuel pumps, plus the increases in the weekly shopping price, plus the increase back in April this year of the energy prices, and not including the forthcoming energy price, which is going to go up in October, which we're just about to get to. So I said energy prices have increased £400 a month. That was not true. What I meant was household costs, roughly speaking, including fuel, food and energy costs, have gone up by about £400 a month. And I stand by that. I still think that people's outgoings had already gone up by about £400 a month when I recorded that. Now, since I recorded that video, quite a lot has changed. The Queen has died. Liz Truss has become Prime Minister. The government has announced a guarantee on home energy bills. And as I record this, they're about to announce a whole bunch of other stuff, which may or may not influence this forecast. But I don't think there's much that they can do. It is my professional informed opinion that house prices have already begun falling at the agreed stage. We won't know for sure until deals being agreed today are completed and registered with the Land Registry and published, which could be 6 months or so. But they have begun falling, and I think they have begun what's probably going to be a 2-year slide. Exactly how far they're going to fall, well, that's impossible to form an opinion on without knowing all of the external factors that are going to affect it in the coming 24 months. But based on what we know now, in the autumn of 2022, I'm predicting that when they finally bottom out, which again we won't know until 6 months after that's happened, they're going to be somewhere around 25 to 30% off the highs that I believe figures will show happened around about, well, it's been recorded as July 2022 that they went up 15% on average nationally. Those are deals that were agreed at the beginning of the year, which is when I sensed it. And that's why I did that February video saying that I thought the conditions were right for house prices to fall. Without further ado, let's get into those 10 reasons. Right, number one, we now know that the energy price cap is going to be equivalent of £2,500. That means that unless there are further changes, as of next month, household energy bills are going to be, on average, almost double what they were a year ago. Ask yourself whether or not these 10 factors are going to be good for house prices or bad for house prices. Good for buyer affordability or bad for buyer affordability. Good for supply or bad for supply. Household energy bills will be, as of next month, will be double what they were a year ago. I can't see a way in which that's good for anybody. So that's point number one. And again, I've linked to where you can go and check out the figures below all this. Number two, inflation. Inflation, the most recent month rise was 9.9%. On the Bank of England's website today, it's forecasting it's going to rise to 13%. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but that's the Bank of England's forecast. So inflation is forecast to get worse, and it's forecast to stay bad for a couple of years before it gets back down again. Okay, that's the Bank of England's current forecast, not mine, not my opinion. That is stating the opinion of the institution whose sole job is to keep inflation down. So they're forecasting inflation topping at 30% and then coming back down to 2% in a couple of years from now. Is that good for house prices or bad for house prices? Well, there are lots of arguments for and against there, but in terms of affordability for buyers, that is not good right now as we record this. It is bad. Number three, unemployment or employment. The figures that have come out since the last video I did were that unemployment has reached a record low and it's fallen even further. But if you dig deep, oh, that's a screaming child. He banged his knee. What's going to happen to unemployment? Well, I've linked to an image that's a snapshot of a government website of unemployment breakdown or people not working. And you will see in there that the number of people who are not working but are not counted as unemployed has risen from 400,000 to 900,000. And the total number of people claiming universal credit in the last 2 years has risen from 3 million to 5.7 million. Whatever the unemployment figures are, they are not counting those people. They don't mean what they used to mean anymore, unemployment figures, okay? And if you look deeper and scratch the surface, which you can go and do on the links I've sent you, you're going to see that actually the unemployment situation or the employment situation, or however you want to phrase it, it's not good and it's getting worse. And also in the most recent government figures, they did say the number of job vacancies has just fallen for the first time in a while. It fell 3%, I think, in the month from July to August. So all of those figures are that employment is weakening. Increasing numbers of people on universal credit, increasing numbers of people who are not working but for some reason not counted as unemployed, and falling job vacancies. Good for house prices or bad for house prices? So point number 4, here's a quote directly from the Bank of England website about recession. The United Kingdom is now projected to enter recession from the fourth quarter of 2022. Real household post-tax income is projected to fall sharply in 2022 and 2023, while consumption growth turns negative. Okay, so they are saying people's post-tax income, people's disposable income is already falling this year, is going to fall all of next year, and consumption is going to turn negative, which is definitely recession. So we're not yet technically in a recession. I think we actually are in a recession. My own personal experiences of actually in the last week or two, it's just fallen off a cliff in terms of consumer confidence and consumer spending. I think that'll be reflected in the figures when they finally come out. But we are entering a recession for certain, and it's going to be quite a prolonged one. You can expect a good couple of years. If the Bank of England is already forecasting it 2022 and 2023, well, read the whole page for yourself. The link is in the description below, right? So point number 4, we're entering a recession. Is entering a recession good for house prices or bad for house prices? Okay, I'll let you answer that one yourself. Number 5, rents are rising. And according to the article that I found from the Big Issue website, which refers to studies done by Rightmove and Zoopla on rent prices, they're rising at the fastest rate for 15 years. And currently average price increases in rent are 12%. But check out the article yourself to see the small print, okay? So if rents are increasing, that means that tenants' disposable incomes are decreasing on top of the decreases caused by fuel, energy and food increases, and therefore are going to lead to a worsening recession. Okay, rising rents are going to impact affordability, because don't forget, most first-time buyers come out of rented properties if they're not living with their parents. So that's number 5. The rising cost of rent. Do you think that's going to increase house prices or decrease house prices? Some of you might argue, well, if rents are going up, it's going to attract more landlords. And if it attracts more landlords, then they're going to be buying up, and that's going to put prices up. Well, it depends how many landlords are going to do that. Wait till I get to point number 9 before you think about that one. Point number 6, interest rates. The worst case scenario forecast I've heard from interest rates is from a friend of mine who's a statistician who I trust, who thinks the Bank of England base rate could get as bad as 6%. The Bank of England's website predicts interest rates to get to peak at 3% in the third quarter of 2023, right? So a year from now, base rates are going to be 3%, which is almost double what they are now. Okay, that's the Bank of England, and these are the guys who set interest rates. That's what they're projecting as peak interest rate is 3%. So it's probably going to be somewhere between those two, isn't it? Between 3 and 6%. Again, depending on all kinds of things that might change in the meantime. Whether it's 3% or 6%, that's still a significant increase on what it is today, which means mortgages go up, the cost of mortgages goes up, which means the cost of borrowing for businesses goes up, which worsens recessionary impact on businesses. And therefore, I think it's easy to argue that has a negative effect on house prices. On to point number 7, the first-time buyers' affordability being hit. Now, you could argue that all the things I've already said refer to that, and that's true. But what I want to do is point out to you what the effect that has on the whole housing market, because first-time buyer demand and first-time buyer affordability underpins the rest of the housing market, okay? I have had a couple of counter-arguments, which I'll mention because they are valid, definitely valid arguments. But if first-time buyer demand is reduced by affordability criteria, which without a doubt that's going to happen, that has a kind of house of cards effect, hence the collapse word that I've used, on the rest of the market. The counter-arguments I've heard are that because of the cost of energy, people are going to be downsizing to smaller, cheaper to heat homes. On the face of it, that's a sort of sensible hypothetical argument, but I think in reality, people, unless they are downsizing because they can actually use less space, aren't going to be moving into a smaller home just to save on energy bills, because that's a negative impact on quality of life that I just don't think, unless you're forced into that situation, which maybe you will be, you'd want to do. So I don't see huge demand from people downsizing. And by the way, downsizers will affect house prices at their level as well, of course. But I don't see huge demand from downsizers coming down to buy smaller, cheaper to heat properties. But it's a possible argument. And again, this also ignores people who talk about the massive overseas demand. Well, there isn't any new overseas demand. If overseas demand stays the same, then the overall impact on the market is going to be neutral, isn't it? So people saying, oh, I think that massive, someone said in the comments, oh, people from Hong Kong and China and India are buying up everything. Well, it's not true, really, is it? They're not buying up everything. I don't think there's a massive increase in demand. And in fact, while the pound is in free fall in terms of its currency value, they're not going to be looking to invest into a depreciating currency right now. So my view, I don't actually know, I haven't seen any figures on this, there's all kinds of arguments for and against, is that the impact of international buyers is probably neutral, relatively unchanged. because I think some people want to stay away from it because there's forecast of really bad house price falls and really bad recession, so that would deter foreign investors. Whereas some investors who are moving back to the UK anyway are going to see falling prices now and want to buy now anyway. So yeah, I think that's about a neutral hit. But overall, point number 7, first-time buyers being hit is going to pull the rug from the base that props up the property market. Okay, and don't forget, on top of that, as a little bonus reason, the Help to Buy scheme is about to come to an end. So unless the government renews that or extends it, which perhaps they will, I don't know, if the Help to Buy scheme does end, that's going to provide further negative impact on first-time buyers' affordability and therefore the effect on house prices throughout the market. Okay, number 8, and this was one that a lot of people I don't think understood fully last time, which is the Bank of England has been printing money since the financial crisis for 13 years straight, and it stopped printing this money, quantitative easing, which is actually not printing money, it's buying government bonds. It stopped it in December 2021, and then in March of this year it began doing the opposite, and I won't try and explain it on here. I've put a link to it in the description so you can go and read for yourself what they are doing. But here is a quote from an article on Bloomberg's. Nobody knows the economic impact of taking away £80 billion a year of central bank liquidity. Okay? Not going to go into the details of that now, but that's what Bloomberg, who's a pretty respected financial news source, nobody knows. In other words, they're not even expressing an opinion themselves. They're saying this is kind of unprecedented. We don't know what the impact is going to be of taking away 80 billion of central bank liquidity a year is. But it doesn't sound like it's going to be positive. Okay, now, here are my bonus 2 points that I missed out last time. And thank you to the people who pointed this out to me after my last video that I'd missed these 2 points. Number 9, because of the Renters Reform Bill currently going through the House of Parliament, it is expected that landlords are going to lose the right to remove tenants from properties in order to sell them. So in other words, the removal of the Section 21 notice. And I have a link to an article that talks about a survey of landlords where 23% of them said that they already decided to exit the buy-to-let market. Now, if 23% of private buy-to-let landlords exit the market, that's going to increase the supply of properties coming onto the market, isn't it? Okay. And when you read the article I've linked to, you'll see why the landlords are already saying, hey guys, we've got 4 months to get out of here, otherwise we're stuck here for 7 years. Okay. So that's what they're saying to themselves. Get out now or accept the fact you're stuck in there for 7 years. So if 23% of buy-to-let landlords are selling up, that's going to increase the supply. And to those of you who keep on shouting supply and demand at me, every single point on here is an impact on supply and demand. It's either weakening demand or it's increasing supply. Either way, all downward pressure on prices, okay? So the buy-to-let landlord sell-off is point number 9. That won't last forever, but it's currently in full swing. And number 10, and I can't believe I missed this from the last video, fixed rate mortgages ending. People who are already partway through a fixed rate introductory period of a mortgage they took out in the last year or two are going to be coming to the end of that soon. And it's something like 80% of first-time buyers go onto fixed rate mortgages. All right. One story in the Evening Standard, which is mainstream media, so I'm not necessarily believing it, but it quotes a study by UK Finance, which is a financial marketplace impartial observer. They do surveys and reports, saying that over 500,000 people in London and the South East have got fixed rate mortgages coming to an end and are going to have serious affordability problems when they have to either start paying the variable rate or find a remortgage. Nationally, the figure that I can remember is 1.8 million people whose fixed rate term on their mortgage comes to an end within the next 12 months. Now, some of them will be able to afford the increase. That's not going to cause an effect. Some of them are going to have to remortgage at much higher prices. That's going to add to the recessionary effect if they can afford to in other words, their new mortgage, even if it's a fixed rate, is going to be a higher rate and is going to be taking a big chunk out of their earnings. But some people coming to the end of their fixed rate introductory period of their mortgage are already realising that they are not going to be able to afford the new repayment when it happens, and are therefore putting the houses back on the market. I've had people commenting, telling me about this, saying they're going to be moving back in with their parents, or renting is going to become cheaper again, or something like that. Like they can't afford what the mortgage is going to increase to, so they're being forced into selling. Now, some of you might say, "Oh, and then the landlord's going to snap those up." Some will, but again, there are mostly landlords currently running for cover because of the changes in legislation. So I'm afraid that the fixed rate mortgages ending, the 1.8 million of them ending in the next year, and put that into context, right? There are roughly 1 million property sales a year in the UK on average. Near as damn it's been a bit more recently, it's been 1.2 million in the last 12 months that were recorded. So you're talking about 1.5 years worth of transactions nationally coming to the end of a fixed rate mortgage term, and their payment is going to increase massively. So that's point number 10. Now, why am I doing this? I've had since that last video a lot of people saying that I'm a doom monger. Well, I am here reporting publicly reported facts to you that you can verify all of them. And I'm doing so because I think if these things are coming down the line, it's intelligent to be prepared for them. Is it nice to hear? No. Is it worrying? Yes. Are estate agents going out there and telling everybody this news? No, they're really not, right? And somebody needs to, and nobody else is. So I'm not being a doom monger. I am sharing with you facts you can verify for yourself so you can make a more informed decision, and not just be sucked into the, oh, it's always a good time to buy spiel from estate agents who will not share all of this news with you, because this news is negative on house prices. But whether you're an estate agent or a mover, house prices falling is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a bad thing if you're currently trying to sell or need to sell in the near future. Then yes, if you're selling and not upsizing, it's a bad thing. But if you're a buyer, it's not a bad thing. If you're an estate agent, it's not a bad thing, because people are still going to buy just at lower values and you're still going to get the transactions. So I don't even see this as doom. I mean, a recession is scary for everybody. Of course it is. But this isn't me prophesying some massive recession. I'm just telling you what the Bank of England's already saying, okay? So to those of you who are accusing me of doom mongery, well, call it what you like. I think it's better to let people who may not be aware of what's coming around the corner know what's coming around the corner. And to those of you who say that I am making predictions, I'm not making predictions. I am sharing public information with you so you can make your own decision on what's coming around the corner for you. I am making estimates in response to questions that I'm asked. What do I think interest rates are going to go to? But I'm using the Bank of England's own forecast. So some people said to me, well, nobody knows what's going to happen, so you should shut up. I respectfully, deeply disagree with that sentiment, okay? I think smart people who are making informed life decisions actually appreciate informed, fact-backed information that they can then use to go and inform their own decision. Does this mean you shouldn't buy? No. If you need a home and you can afford a home and you're confident you can keep up your mortgage repayments for at least 5 years on it, you should continue to buy. Just don't overpay. And I did a video recently about how not to overpay, so check that out. I'll link to it here if I remember. There are estate agents who think that this means there are going to be fewer transactions. Well, I don't see that happening either, at least not in the near future. That only happens when you get proper stagnation, when the market's reached the bottom of a price slide. But on the way down, there are plenty of transactions and people need to move. The only time at which a house price fall or crash or collapse, or whatever you want to call it, impacts transaction levels is when you've got people who want to sell but can't because they're trapped in negative equity. I have had one person contact me and say that they bought using Help to Buy recently, like within the last year, and have already found themselves in a position where the value of their property has dropped below what they paid for it, and they now can't sell because of the Help to Buy mortgage amount. So we're already seeing the beginnings of negative equity for a few people who've bought at the very top with very small deposits, okay? It's a real thing. Now, if you can keep up your mortgage repayments on your property throughout negative equity, then you won't lose your home. And that's the most important thing, is that you don't lose your home, okay? But for those of you who are worried about it and don't think you're going to be able to afford to keep up repayments 2, 3, 4 years down the line, then you should seriously consider selling before you get to that situation and cutting your losses and salvaging what you can. To those of you who are saying, well, there's still stuff going higher than asking price in my area. Well, good agents will always pitch a property at a price that will get exceeded. But are those asking prices actually coming down? That's what you haven't said. Rightmove was reporting asking prices coming down in July. We're now approaching October. So I think you're going to see that properties going for over asking price just mean that the agents priced it correctly, got lots of interest, and it sold quickly. Okay, that should always be the case if you're selling. Okay, if you need to sell, your agent should get the price just right, and you'll get at or just above asking price. That's how you know you've got a good agent and you've got a good price. If you've now, I've taken a bit more care on the details this time. Any challenges gratefully received, constructive challenges. Any baseless opinions are a waste of time. If your mate's an estate agent or if a bloke in the pub said this or that, it's not really helpful. What is helpful is if you've got information that you can bring that backs up anything you want to bring that contradicts and disagrees with what I'm saying. I welcome it. It's constructive debate. Everybody benefits from constructive debate. But in the meantime, I hope that was helpful. Thank you to guys for watching. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.